Welcome to WOMMA TV, the WOMMA podcast with video. So we are here live on the Word of Mouth Marketing and Social Media Marketing channel, brought to you by the Word of Mouth Marketing Association, officially known as WOMMA, WOMMA.org. It is the official trade association dedicated to the word of mouth, social media, and all things social engagement and marketing. WOMMA TV features the latest in emerging trends, WOMMA insights, ethics, details about cutting-edge events, educational resources, and sock puppets. Today, we've got a couple of guests that are going to join us. I've got Ted Wright of Fizz, and I've got Dan Skinner, who is a manager at ConAgra Foods. Ted, how are you?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and your background, please.
So Fizz was the first word-of-mouth marketing agency. We're about 12 years old at this point, and we're in Atlanta, Georgia, and we have clients and activations on all 5 continents at this point. So I guess we just need to be Antarctica, and we'll get all the rest of it. So we just do word-of-mouth marketing, and we're really happy to be here today talking with you about whatever it is that you all would like to talk about.
Dan, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, pleasure to be here. Sure. Well, I am a public relations, social media, and experiential manager with ConAgra Foods, and I've been in that role for about 2.5 years now. As part of the ConAgra Foods team, my team shares a number of the different brands that we have, and we all play that same role on those teams. So I oversee Slim Jim, Orville Redenbacher, Hunt's Tomatoes, Hebrew National Hot Dogs, and a couple others. So Slim Jim is part of the reason I'm here today, and we're very proud of the work we've done on that with respect to social media.
Yeah, in 2012, both of you were involved in something that was very important to both Ted, your client, and then Dan, the brand that you work for. Can you both share what it was that accomplished in December of this year? Dan, can you give us a sense of what happened that was important?
Sure. Well, we were very honored to win a Gold WOMMA Award for in the social media category for our work on Slim Jim, and a lot of credit for that goes to the agency that we've partnered with on this work, Edelman. We've had a Facebook account for Slim Jim before even I got here, starting back to like late 2009, 2010. But in 2011, we made the decision to bring on a community manager for Slim Jim to really up the engagement levels and get more content out to our community. So we're really excited and really pleased with the work that individual, Scott Emelfarb, has been able to do for our community. We gave him a nickname as chosen by the community called the Sultan of Snap, and his content and the things that we do to our social media channel really reflect the interests and the passions of our fan base. So we've grown that community quite a bit over the years, both through organic efforts and some paid support as well. But we got up over 1 million fans this year, and continue to see that community grow and get some great stuff out of it, and have taken Scott on the road to a few events. So that collective work is why we were honored with a WOMMA Award for social media. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout this show, but we're really honored and really pleased with what we've been able to use social media for Slim Jim.
Yeah, congratulations. We were at the Las Vegas event and was pleased to see your results. Ted, you won an award as well for some work with a brand that Fizz represents. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Sure. We were really pleased to be able to work with the Bissell Company. They're a 100-year-old plus family-owned company that's in Southwest Michigan, and they make the world's #1 sweeper. And we were excited to be able to help them grow the brand volume, the sales volume in the last 2 years, in excess of 50%. And so WOMMA was very gracious to, let us enter into their competition. And we ended up winning, the top award in the momentum category, which is everybody who's got a brand and a campaign that's at least 2 years old. So it's, functionally everybody, except startups. And we were pleased to be able to compete, and, the gods smiled on us, and we won. And we have a great team down here. It's, I'm very proud of Bissell. Letting them, work our word-of-mouth magic, and the board at Bissell has been very supportive. It's still a family-owned company. The guy who signs our contract his name is on every product that comes out of the door. So it's been a very fun 2 years, and we're continuing on and expanding into other products that they'd like to sell more of.
Well, congratulations to you both. We're going to spend a little bit of time later on the show talking about the awards but more specifically the programs that you both oversaw and how those manifested themselves into something that was worthy of a WOMMA. But what I'd like to do before we dive into that is spend a little bit of time talking about 2012, and then talk about the programs, and then end the show by talking about what the two of you feel you expect to see in 2013. And for those of you that don't know, my name is Steve Hirschberger. I'm going to be your host for this show, WOMM TV. I'm with ComBlue, headquartered there in Chicago, along with WOMMA. So with that little plug, let's dive right in. Ted, if you had to look back to 2012, what, in your opinion, was the most important thing that we perhaps as an industry learned in the terms of practicing social media, both as an art and a science?
So from a word of mouth marketing perspective, the two interesting things for 2012 was the continuing expansion and the continuing granularity of the quality of the metrics that are out there and the quality of the ability to measure. And hand in hand, that goes with much more senior brands and much more senior people in large global companies being willing to, quote, give word of mouth marketing a test. I mean, the reality is that only 1 of 10 word of mouth conversations that result in a sale happen in a digital format. The other 7 out of 10 happen face to face. And as a species, for the last 3,000 years, we've been talking to each other, and broadcast is 50 years old, and social media, as it were, is about 3. So everybody is well trained, coming right out of the womb, all the way up to into their golden years, to talk to their friends and share stories. And that's in the North American market space. And if you look at the research that Ed Keller and Brad Fay have done, and some other great luminaries, then you'll see that it is conversation that drives sales. And so those companies that have focused on those conversations, they're the ones that are making all the money. And as one CMO has looked at another CMO and said, hey, what's the secret to success? We in our shop are seeing that a lot more of these people are saying, hey, this age of conversation, I guess this is for real. And now there's tools that I can manage this, and I can go to my board a year afterwards, and the most curmudgeon-y of numbers-oriented people, and say, this is what you gave me, this is what the reality was, this is what we made in our post-net EBITDA money, so you should give me more next year, and we should continue to expand that. And I think this year is one of those great Malcolm Gladwell tipping points as far as the adoption of word of mouth as not a trend and not a fad, but this is the way that we're going to go forward.
Dan, sitting on the brand side, do you see the adoption within your peers that may not necessarily sit in PR and marketing? Do they understand, or are they beginning to understand what the implications of word of mouth or social marketing are, both to the organization as well as to them, either within their product or service group, or that may perhaps even their line of business? Is that something that you're encountering more and more frequently, or perhaps even less frequently inside of the organization?
Well, I would say we've worked very hard as a team here at Conagra to demonstrate the power of social media and the power of the word of mouth marketing, and really to harness the opportunity that we have with these fan bases that we build up through social media. I work very closely with our consumer insights team to bring forward the learnings that I'm finding through social media. A lot of it's very anecdotal, but if we've got a promotion out in the market, let's say, we're going to get feedback on our Facebook page on what people think about that promotion. Or if we launch a new product, we're going to have feedback on through our Twitter channel about maybe people are having a hard time finding it on shelf, or they don't like a certain SKU that we have. So all of that data that we get through social media is very powerful to our team. So it's incumbent on me to work with our teams and work with the brand managers, and to work with the insights team, or to work with the advertising team, all the different disciplines within our organization, to say, hey, here's this fan base that we have, here's this audience that we have, here's what they're saying to us, and what are the opportunities, or what questions would you like me and my team to ask of them? So as we're getting more and more examples of that, the enthusiasm for social media and word of mouth marketing is growing within our organization.
Ted, you get the opportunity to work across a lot of brands, and you also have the opportunity to work on a number of different continents. From your perspective, where did you see in 2012 the traction within an organization and an appetite for social and word of mouth marketing, and where did you see it really sort of having a difficult time getting any purchase?
So for us, we're seeing a lot of interest coming out of the C-suite. Large companies, like ConAgra, that we work for, big global footprints all over the place. We're seeing C-level people having somebody from their staff call us and say, hey, this guy is interested or this woman is interested. Can you come here and talk to about this? Can you, what can you tell us about this? Can we have a phone call? And then we go and we sort of explain this and walk through a very numbers-based area and have other CFOs and CMOs and CEOs that they can call and their peers and they can talk to. And 6-8 weeks later, they call and say, hey, we'd like to come and we're interested in doing this. And nobody's, none of our big global 50 or big global 100 companies have given their whole marketing budget to us yet. So we're waiting on that day. But it's coming. I mean, if you're in the word of mouth space, that is coming, because every time one of these large companies tests that, they're wowed by the percentage increase for sales that they can have. And particularly, lots of people will see, lots of large companies will give you a brand that's maybe has declined recently or has been level for several years, and they've tried everything and they can't get it to move. And all of a sudden, word of mouth can come in there and get it to move 50% in 2 years. And they haven't seen that kind of growth, in the last 3 decades. And all of a sudden, they're like, wow, so what did you do? And you take people through that and you throw in the process, and they're like, wow, well, that's only 6% of our business. What if you did this? And then you see we have a lot of calls come in our shop. One C-level person told another C-level person, wherever these people meet, and one of these days I'd like to go to that club and at least be able to, do a seminar, because there's some magical club somewhere where they all seem to hang out. And somehow they're all talking to each other. And when they talk to each other, they said, hey, you ought to really try this. This is the hype, and this is the reality. And the reality is really good. And they're all marketing people, or they've heard marketing people before, and so they're familiar with the hype, and they're familiar that some people are better at this than others. And they go and they test. And, over a 2-year process, they're like, wow. And then they start spreading it to other parts of their organization. And, we have not seen, and we don't work with them because they do their own work internally, but Procter & Gamble is a pretty fully integrated word-of-mouth marketing operation through all of their pieces. And even then, they still have, they're always seeking to do more. So we have yet to see any of our larger companies go fully word-of-mouth. But we have companies that are, 150 million to 300 million in annual sales, and they've totally gone to word-of-mouth, and they are growing faster than they have ever grown before. And they attribute it to this and many other things. So that's the exciting part for us. It turns out that word-of-mouth marketing works. It turns out that when you, Steve, and me, and everybody else who started this thing back in the Stone Ages, it turns out that we were right, and it works, and it's pretty neat if you haven't seen it before. And it's exciting. You're like, wow, I hear about all these things, but does it really work? Well, it does. And now you're getting peer-to-peer communication. You're getting word-of-mouth among the C-level people. And then what they do is they push down to their middle layer of management that is concerned, because they want to be judged well, and they're judged every quarter. And so from our perspective, it takes that C-level top to give people room to work. This is going to work. I will give you room on your metrics or whatever, your evaluations. You will not be dinged, and you should give it a try. And then they jump in, and the marketers who love it are the ones who have been there for a while, who are like, this is what I get into marketing for. This works. This is awesome. I want to do this every day. And then you get basically a functional, virtuous circle of wonderfulness. You get, communities coming together. You get consumers coming together. You get all these different groups, and you get better information. And as Dan pointed out, you get things that you can work with. You're like, wow, I never thought about that before. Let's do that. And these are the glories of word-of-mouth marketing. More money, more opportunity, more expansion. That's pretty much what marketing is about.
That's great insight. Thanks, Ted. Dan, with what Ted said, do you see in ConAgra a lot of cross-pollination on ideas that let's hone in on the Slim Jim program that you worked on? Do you find that your peers across the organization are coming to you and asking you certain questions associated with that program that they want to beg, borrow, or steal and perhaps use within their own initiatives? And have you guys built a center of excellence to help pollinate that across all of ConAgra?
We have, yep. You know, we have an integrated marketing team within each of the brands that, you know, you've got my discipline, then you've got somebody who oversees media buying, you've got somebody who oversees content creation, which focuses around the production of advertising, but also content that could live online or in a banner ad or something like that. We've got a digital team that focuses on the websites. We've got a consumer promotions team. So we work very closely together. What we want to make sure is that the content that we're putting out through social media and the look and feel of all that reflects the work of everybody on the team, and that we've got a creative platform that we've developed through this integrated marketing process to ensure that, you know, the stuff that I'm doing with the Slim Jim team on Facebook and on Twitter and with content that we produce for YouTube, that very much reflects the broader marketing look and feel, while at the same time, you know, keeping a kind of fun, irreverent tone to it that makes our community online feel like, you know, they're being talked to by a friend and not a marketer. So that's the balance we need to strike. But, you know, I want to make sure, for example, when we went to Comic-Con for Slim Jim, which was one of the things that we put in the submission for the WOMMA Awards, you know, we were at Comic-Con with a vehicle that was in the advertising that we featured for Slim Jim and had that vehicle to go all around San Diego. So while we've got something that's very fun and interactive, it's also bringing the advertising campaign to life. And then understanding like some of the ad buys that we might have. What is an opportunity for our social or our community manager to work with one of those buys and to get some added value opportunities out of that? So everything we have from a marketing programming should play off of one another, and social plays a very big role in that.
Good coaches or winning coaches make game plans, and when the thing that I think we all see if we watch a football game is that once the game starts, starting player gets injured, somebody gets ejected from the game, the refs don't know what they're doing, something happens, and the playbook has to get thrown out, or at least it gets changed. You have to improvise. So, Ted, how much of good social pivoting or measurement in real time or improvisation is necessary so that you know exactly where you are and what you do next? The example that comes to mind, that if, you know, to continue on the sports analogy, that if you're 4th and 20 and you're on your own 5-yard line, is running the ball really a good idea? So is knowing where you are at any given point in time, is being able to accurately measure that, and is being able to be creative and put the game plan aside for a little bit and just improvise. How important is that to good social?
So good word of mouth marketing, you know, as long as you keep the base idea in front of you at all times, you know, tactics can move and they can, so, you know, like Dan, if it had rained at Comic-Con this year, by the way, I was there, Dan, totally had fun time playing with the Slim Jim truck when it went by, you know. We did our best Macho Man Randy Savage, you know, impression as it's going by, and got a couple of Slim Jims. And, you know, even in my early 40s, I'm still all about the Slim Jims. So thank you for that.
Of course.
You know, for us in word of mouth, it's all about how can we drive conversation. So even if something changes, even if something's not working, I mean, we'll go out in the field and we'll have 10 different activation ideas. And lo and behold, there's always one that you think is brilliant, that it turns out the only people who actually thought it was brilliant were you, sort of me, and possibly my mother, because she loves everything I ever did. And then there's one thing you just threw in there at the last minute, and like, everybody loves this. And like, okay, well, let's go with the things that people love. If that's what people are talking about, let's go with that. And if, you know, if it's raining, then let's do that. And if the table is square, then just get rid of the table, because you don't need a table to be a barrier between you and talking to people. So from a word of mouth marketing perspective, it's always about keeping conversation. Is something talkable? And if it is, how are you going to have that conversation with more people? If you can do that over time, your brand will grow.
Dan, with the Slim Jim program, how often did you have to pivot as you operated within the marketplace?
Yeah, to me, the beauty of social media is that ability to change on the fly and really, adapt to different scenarios and different conditions. When you look at some of the other marketing disciplines, it takes a lot more time to adjust advertising or adjust a commercial that you may not feel completely comfortable about, compared to switching up our content on our Facebook page moving forward. So, we look at different scenarios. I'll use a promotion we have running right now with EA, Electronic Arts, the video game manufacturer, as an example. We have 3 video games that we're partnering with right now, 2 of which are currently out: Medal of Honor and Need for Speed, and then Dead Space 3, which comes out next February, or February 2013. So understanding the consumer reaction to the different games and how those games are doing in market, and which ones our community seems to be rallying around the most, that influences the content that we put out moving forward and where we want to push the conversation. So we're very much nimble and all that stuff that you mentioned earlier, but a lot of that is driven by the feedback that we're hearing from our audience. So we kind of steer the conversation in the direction that they tell us they want to go.
So let's delve into a little more detail about the programs that you guys were involved with. Ted, you guys worked with Bissell for sweepers. Turns out kids love to sweep. Can you tell us a little bit about where the idea for your program came from and how you ideated that with your client, please?
Sure. So the problem that Bissell had, so that product is, over 100 years old, and it's gone through some design iterations, but it's fundamentally very similar to the product that Mark Bissell's great-great-great-grandfather invented, in the late 1800s. So it has some particular qualities to it, and one of the particular qualities to it is it can pick up little small things better than a lot of other items that are out there. And so those little small things, one of them, for example, is the little tiny Lego pieces. So just on camera, not the big ones that your kids can get, but the little tiny ones that hide in the carpet that, when your plane is delayed from Chicago to Atlanta and you arrive home at 2:30 in the morning, that's the one that you always step on. And Lego actually knew about this. In fact, if you go to Legoland out in California, they actually have a mosaic out there that basically tells that story. And so we had discovered this because we're talking to our consumers, and we turned out that we realized that this picked up Lego pieces. And so we said, okay, so where do these Lego parents show up? And we figured out where they showed up. And so we went and we basically just figured out how to pick Legos up in front of them. And we did the same thing for pine needles. Pine needles, it turns out, are terrible for your vacuum cleaner because the sap comes out of them. They get a little dry, the sap comes out. They come into your vacuum cleaner. They all stick together. There's a lot of people that break their vacuum cleaners over Christmas. Bissell, because of the way that it's designed, it won't do that. So we decided, hey, where are there pine needles? Well, we can't go to people's houses, and we thought about going to Christmas tree lots, and it rains at Christmas tree lots, so we can't go there. We're like, aha, those lines where everyone stands in, waiting in line for Santa Claus? Let's be right next to the line. Let's rent that space in malls across America, and let's put pine trees up there, and let's throw pine needles on the ground, and let's just pick up pine needles in front of people. And so we've got, there's roughly around 6,000 kids that will go and see an individual Santa during the month of November. So we're like, well, they got to do something while they're standing in line for 20 minutes. And turns out that they really like, which we knew ahead of time, they really like to work with a sweeper. Because our clients said, oh, by the way, kids love, particularly boy children, love to play with the sweeper. So we're like, let's give them a chance to. So now what we do is we've got 6,000 and 9,000 parents over a month, all that are standing there with their kids, all have had a shower or a bathtub or whatever. They're all wearing their most fun holiday clothes. All these parents bring their cameras so they can take other pictures of their kids with Santa. And now we got them standing right next to them for 20 minutes. cleaning up something or playing with a sweeper. They've never seen this before. Their kids are 4, their kids are 9. They're generally not involved in household cleaning. And the kids are waiting in line and arguing with each other about who gets to use a sweeper next, which, of course, parents have also not seen kids arguing about who gets to clean next. So it became this big social media thing, and people are sitting there right there with their camera, their cell phone, they're taking it, and you see them posting on Facebook, sending to everybody, they're getting tweets back, oh, that's so cute. People are like, so what is that? That's a Bissell sleeper. What is it doing? Picking up pine needles. Oh, I have a pine tree in my house because I celebrate Christmas. I need that. How much does it cost? Oh, just $40. Oh, great, I'll go get one. And then everywhere we did that, you saw sales, skyrocket, so much so that Walmart got a little perturbed at Bissell because they were basically selling out, and Walmart is very much a supply chain kind of thing, and so they'd assumed that Walmart or Bissell just didn't tell them that they were doing this big promotional coupon drop or whatever it was, because that's what Walmart is used to, and then Bissell could explain word-of-mouth marketing to Walmart, and they're like, wow, that's really interesting, we had to look at that for us, because it works.
You said 2 things that were interesting, Dan, that I want to turn over to you for your comment. The first thing, Ted, that you said that I thought was interesting is it was super obvious. Programs are super obvious. So it wasn't that you just had to put the transparency notification or the hash mark or whatever up. That the program itself was so blatant as to what it was that nobody really needed any further explanation. And then the other thing that I heard you say was that it adds to the story. The sum of the experience adds to the brand story. Is that a fair synopsis of your point on that?
Yeah. So this is Ted. Absolutely. Look, it's just about being obvious. I mean, you're in a mall, and during Christmas time, commercialism that's what a mall is for. So, and there's some places where it's a little less obvious what we're doing. And so if somebody asks, we tell them. And somebody will ask, well, are you paid to do this? And they're like, oh, absolutely. And then, like our work with Pabst Blue Ribbon Beer, people loved it that somebody's job in America to be go to bars and talk to people about PBR. And we got lots of people who would say, oh, if you're hiring, here's my card. I'd love to do that for a job. Much like, when the Slim Jim car goes by being Comic-Con, or the Wienermobile goes down the road, who doesn't want to have that as their job? What's your job? My job is to go to Comic-Con and pass out and talk to people about Slim Jim. What a great job. Why wouldn't you want to do that? That's super cool.
Dan, did you, when you launched your program, did you find that to be really the same thing, that it was just super obvious and that added to the fun and the brand story? Was that the case with the Slim Jim program as well?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we really like about Scott, our community manager, and again, I'll harken back to his nickname, the Sultan of Snap. He is one of the guys when it comes to the target audience that we are trying to reach, and he embodies that persona. So, we're not trying excuse me, we're not trying to use social media or any of our marketing tools to be something secretive or something we're not. We are out there with the personality that embodies our brand really well, and our fans embrace that. And that's why we've gotten such good responses on our content and gotten good feedback from the community and been able to grow the community, is because when they see the content that we're putting out, they see the places we are, that feels very natural to them. So, there's good marketing and stuff that's been done where brands show up in unexpected places, and that might work well for different campaigns. But for us, it's all about being in the places and being part of the conversations that we know are the topics that are essential to the lives that our guys live every day.
I have one last question as it relates to these 2 programs for you guys, and then we're going to turn our attention to 2013 before we wrap the show up. My question, Ted, to you first is the Bissell program. It was incredibly successful. Is it going to live on and it's in that form or in some other form? How does that campaign translate into ongoing brand engagement, or does it?
So as a campaign, we're continuing on. We just re-signed with them for another year, and so it will continue. There'll be some groups we've won. one of the groups that we started with 2 years ago were basically, women 45 to 65 that travel with their husbands, mostly with their husbands, in RVs all across the country. And there's a significant segment of folks, and their retirement or their sort of middle life is to jump into an RV and drive around and basically talk with people and hang out. And they do this when it's nice, and they all end up in Florida and Arizona, when it's snowy in the rest of the country. And then once it's spring somewhere, they get up and they start going again. And they just travel around the country. And so at this point, a Bissell person can show up at any one of their rallies anywhere across the country, and you'll have people like hang out of the RVs and go, "Hey, it's the Bissell girls," and they just get really excited about it. So we've won, and so we don't have to keep. The good thing about word of mouth is once this conversation gets going, as long as you don't break covenant with those consumers that you have in that area, the story will continue. So now this year we're going to expand that. We're going to borrow from our good friends at Brains on Fire and sort of the Fisketeers thought, and we're going to deputize. We're going to call the deputy program, and we're going to deputize a bunch of our fans out there to basically be, the people that we're going to send stuff to when they stop at their little rallies or whatever, and say, "This is the new thing. This is what's going on. Here's one for you to try out, and here's a couple others. And if you like it, you should share them with their friends. If not, trash them or do whatever else you want to do." For us, it's very low pressure, and we do that because we choose our clients very carefully, those ones that have great stories. So we can be very, quote, laissez-faire about it. We can just go and say, "Hey, if you like it, that's cool. And if you don't, it's not for you, that's no problem." Because we're only picking people. It's like, it's very difficult, I would imagine, going to Comic-Con and passing out Slim Jims and find few people there who are really gamers. It's like, "Oh, no, that's okay. I don't care for Slim Jims." That's not really something that you're going to see a whole lot. I mean, certainly, I was there and I was like, how many of these can I eat? So it will live on, and then also we'll be able to take, some of those same resources, and then we'll be able to put them towards, new categories of people. So we're going to start looking. We're going to start looking at the moms and the kids and the parents that are very involved in the Montessori program, because part of the pedagogy of Montessori is to be able to, doing work at home, and a lot of people have sweepers. And they have them in the classroom, and so why shouldn't everybody that's super into this be using the best sweeper, the one that lasts the longest, the ones that kids can be the toughest on? And so we're going to see if we can, share the story with the Montessori community, and if they like it, that's awesome. And if it's not for them, that's okay too. We've got lots of other people that want to pick up little things and instead of stepping on them.
Dan, what about you? How is your Slim Jim program going to live on?
So the community management and the expectations that we set with how we engage with people will continue to live on. We have this partnership with EA now, and that was one of the first things that we've looked at in terms of video games being a really key focus of what we do, and an opportunity for us to really showcase that is a passion pillar of our fans that we want to talk more about. So I think what we'll see kind of moving forward, without kind of pulling the curtain back too much on our future plans, is that we'll continue to explore that passion for video gaming with our fans, because of all the things that we've put out to the community as topics for conversation, we see that being one of the ones that resonates the strongest. So while we want to continue to talk about all the things that our fans respond to and like, we know that video gaming, among all things, really kind of comes to the top. So you'll see us go kind of even deeper into those levels of conversation in the future.
Terrific. So let's turn our attention in the last couple minutes of our show here, and let's talk about 2013. So as we look into the future, given the fact that we're hopefully all going to make it past the 21st and the Mayan Doomsday, what do you guys see as being the biggest thing that we should expect in 2013? Is it things like mobile integration? Is it better governance? Is it broader organizational adoption? Is it channel integration? Is it traditional marketing integration or campaign overlap or packaging inclusion? That kind of stuff. So Dan, to you first, what do you see from where you sit as the big things in 2013?
Well, a couple things I think, first of all, is, you'll see brands understand now that it's not just a matter of having great content on your social embassies. That's no longer enough to kind of rise to the top in the algorithms that Facebook has put into place. You're going to need to put some paid dollars behind your social content to ensure that it's visible to the widest swath of your fan base. That's frustrating to a lot of brands, but at the same point, if I kind of remove myself and look at it objectively, you tip your hat to Facebook and say that they've done a nice job of building up these communities and making the brands reliant on reaching the fan base. And now they've said, all right, you want to continue to reach them? You're going to have to put some dollars behind it. So, we understand that. We're looking at the approach. But from the flip side of that, I think you'll see communities and organizations who maybe say, you know what, I either don't want to spend those dollars or I don't have those dollars to invest in paid promotion of my social content. So how do you kind of harness the audiences that you have and reach them in ways? If, previously, 50%, let's say, of your Facebook audience was seeing a status message, and now that has dropped to 5%, how do I still reach that fan base that I've created? And how do I find a solve to the kind of the roadblocks per se that Facebook has put in place? So, as these communities and as these platforms get bigger and bigger, you're going to have brands trying to figure out ways to rise above, and the ones that do that the most creatively and in keeping with the spirit of what their fan base wants to see from them, I think are going to have the biggest success.
Ted, do you? 2013, what do you see?
I see continuing wider adoption of word-of-mouth marketing and moving out of the test phase and moving into the budget line phase. I mean, that's what we're seeing. Obviously we're in it every day, and we're also an agency, so that would be great for us as that continues to happen. But that's what we see. I mean, we get more over the transom phone calls in from higher level people than we ever have in the past, and we get in there and they're ready to spend because of the good work that people like Dan and you, Steve, have done in the past, and maybe us and maybe some other people out there. There's stories out there and they're getting shared and it's working.
Well, I think that a rising tide raises all ships. Both of you as WOMMA Award winners help to set the bar. Allows other organizations to point to something, go, look, we can do that too. We can achieve that level of excellence. So I want to thank you both for joining us here today. I gotta do my WOMMA wrap up commercial. So just bear with me for a second, guys. But I want to promote the WOMMapedia, and that is an infographic that's on steroids. Now, if you visit WOMMapedia, you can learn more about the 2012 WOMMA Award winners like Dan and Ted here. You simply have to visit WOMMapedia.org. That's WOMMapedia.org. I also want to talk a little bit about the WOMMfest 2013. On Tuesday, February 19th, marketers are going to, just like Dan and like Ted, are going to, so if you want to meet Dan and Ted in the sock puppet, Ted, show us your sock puppet. No, really, go ahead and show us your sock puppet.
Sock puppet. Hello. Mommy rules.
We're all going to gather in Seattle, Atlanta, and Chicago to celebrate, socialize, and learn. So if you haven't been to a WOMMfest or a WOMMA event, please visit WOMMA.org and visit us. I want to thank everyone for visiting us today. I am Steve Hirschberger. We have Ted Wright of Fizz and Dan Skinner, who's PR manager at ConAgra Foods, that managed the Slim Jim account, visiting with us today. Everyone, happy holidays, and we'll see you in 2013.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for having us.